participate, please stand for the invocation and the pledge.
Good morning, gentlemen. I'd like to open up with a prayer. Father God, we thank you for this opportunity to serve our community. Father, we thank you for wisdom on this board. We ask you to help each and every gentleman on this board to make wise decisions that will better our community, that will be for the best of the community as a whole. Father, we ask these things in the name of Jesus. Amen.
Supervisor Surdy, would you like to give the pledge, please?
Pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right. Well, thank you, and welcome to the Pinal County Board of Supervisors, August 24, 2022, regular meeting. We are in session. First up is a discussion, approval, disapproval regarding the 2022 Pinal County primary election handling, follow-up by staff. Ms. Ross, you are up.
And Chairman, before Virginia...
I'm correct. Yes. Supervisor Kavanaugh will be attending telephonically today. Are you there, Supervisor Kavanaugh?
I'm here.
Thank you.
Okay, good morning, Chairman, Vice Chairman, Supervisors, and staff. Virginia Ross, Elections Director, with my update. We received a court order yesterday for the City of Coolidge. Town Council will be doing a recount for there's 3 candidates that need to be recounted to determine the 2 that will go to the runoff for the 3rd seat. So we're preparing and pulling the ballots and getting ready for that and go through the process. I believe the clerk of the board received a letter from the Secretary of State yesterday that the board will be handling the responsibilities for the recount, which would be me and the team. We have hired a poll worker manager. She's already in place. I brought her over from the recorder's office. I made a deal with the recorder to have her start immediately and work on transition. We were interviewing yesterday and through the rest of the week to try to fill the critical positions that we have open, working on laying out the ballot language, checking all the precinct parts and styles, and rounding up all the full text language for all the measures from state, city, town, schools, etc., getting everything translated, sending all that to the printer, working with Title 48, everyone who sent us an IGA, who's going forward, who's not going forward. So we should be able to get that resolution submitted to the board agenda on Friday for the next time we have a board meeting to cancel those elections that are not going forward. So we're extremely busy every day, and I'll take any questions so I can get back to work.
Any questions from the board? Supervisor.
Everyone else has left the call.
And I'm not sure if this is a question for Virginia or for Kent, but you made a call. I think you made the last time when you came in and gave your report, you talked about how the law or the state statute, it requires that 100% of the ballots, or the 100% for the ballots that needed to be printed, there needed to be 100% of how many voters had registered voters at the polls. And I'm trying to figure out where did that get missed, and if there's any penalties or anything like that for not getting that done.
Chairman, Supervisor Goodman, the penalty part I can't talk to, but what I can say, it is 100%, 101%. It's at least an extra 1%. Most counties probably order up to 10% just because people spoil their ballots, et cetera, et cetera. We have to order more testing and so on and so forth. So it just says at least an extra 1%, but we're going to order. I don't know why or how it got missed, or if it's a shall, not a may. I will let county attorney speak to that. So I wouldn't be able to say anything more than that.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Any other welcome, Supervisor Kavanaugh. Any other questions from the board? Supervisor Surdy.
Mr. Keller, would this be an appropriate time to ask a question that we spoke about a bit ago?
Supervisor Surtee, yes, it would. And I think what you're regarding is, has there been any additional litigation that's been filed in the interim that you would like a briefing on? And I think the county attorney will respond to that.
Yes, I would like to hear that.
Chair, Vice Chair, good morning, Board. Ken Volkmer, Pinal County Attorney. There are 2 pending lawsuits that are active at this time that we are involved with. The first involves Representative John Fillmore. Representative Fillmore is asking that because there is no no Democratic challenger, that he just be forwarded on to the general. He believes it's as simple as this board just saying, hey, we're going to add your name, we're just going to rerun it in the general. Unfortunately, the law does not allow us to do that. There is no statutory authority for us to do that. We have filed a motion to dismiss based on no statutory authority. That is scheduled to be heard by Judge O'Neill tomorrow, I believe at 1 or 1:30. I will be present as well as outside counsel, and we expect we'll get some clarity on that lawsuit, again, early tomorrow afternoon.
And when you're saying we, you not only mean the legal team, but you also mean we, the supervisors, do not have that authority.
That is correct. The county does not have the authority. There's nobody here that can say, look, we screwed up, this is the correction. If that were an option, trust me, we would have presented to the board because, everything that the board has at its availability should be presented. That's just simply not a legal option that is afforded us at this time.
Okay, thanks.
There is a second lawsuit, and that is regarding the Vince Leach matter and Ms. Wadsack. Vince Leach and his team, I believe it's pronounced Wadsack, and if I'm mispronouncing it, I apologize, but there is a challenge to her residency. So unlike for Congress to be a representative in our legislative districts, you must actually reside in that address. So there are 2, I believe, plaintiffs who have said that Ms. Wadsack does not live at the address in which she is reported. We are what's called a nominal party. We don't have any real activity or action in it. However, that hearing is coming at, I believe, 10 o'clock today, so our team will be there listening, and we take no formal position. She either lives there or she doesn't. That's not on us. Whatever the judge rules, we're just going to follow that. If the judge says, yeah, she doesn't live there, she's not a qualified elector, Vince's name goes on, we put Vince's name. If the suit's dismissed, we put Ms. Wadsack. We really don't have any dog in that fight, so to speak.
Was that a close race?
I believe it was about 2,000 votes. Mr. Leach won Pinal County by about 1,000, but I believe he lost the larger portion of Pima County by about 3,000. Those are very rough numbers, but that was my last recollection. There is one additional thing, Chair, if I can. There was some miscommunication. I know Ms. Hawkins reached out to me today. I need to make it abundantly clear. The investigator that we're using, while he was a former elections director, he is not acting in any official capacity as an elections director. Ms. Ross behind me is our elections director. We have no intention of bringing him in as an elections director. There was some miscommunication or misunderstanding. I just want to make it abundantly clear. He is an expert coming in as a consultant. He has a history of being an elections director, but that's not what we're using him for. I know the board is fully aware of it, but I want to make sure the public is aware because there has been a couple texts and a couple emails, and this is frankly the best opportunity to clear up any of those misconceptions.
Go ahead.
Which brings us, we've had requests of how are we going to share the information that this person gathers, and I spoke briefly with Mr. Keller as that as well. Can you give a timeline on how that could happen and when and how it would be?
So he has begun his investigation. He started working effective last Thursday, so today will mark 1 week that he's been doing this. I know he's working with Ms. Ross's team, also Ms. Lewis's team, asking questions, getting the necessary info. I know he's working with their EOC, where all of the complaints about the ballot shortages occurred. We're hopeful that we can get a report 30 days from last Thursday. Realistically, I think that would be a yeoman's task, to say the least. We're probably looking at somewhere between 45 to 60 days. It will come in a written report. It will be presented to the board, and then it will be the board's discussion or determination at that point whether the report in its entirety gets provided to the public. If only particular portions, that'll have to be a board decision, but it will be presented for the board's consideration, again, as soon as we get that. So as soon as we can get a hard date, we'll reach out to the chair, make sure that we can get the information to you as quickly as possible.
So it'll be at the end. We can't leak, hey, here's what we found today. It's going to all come at once.
Vice Chair, that's accurate. There's no sort of interim reports that are being provided. It'll be one summer report. And then, frankly, we're going to have another conversation about, is there additional stuff that needs to be investigated? This is going to be very specific, at least initially. My suspicion is this board may not be satisfied with that being the entirety of it, because, unfortunately, what he's engaged for doesn't get into some of the hiring practices and some of the other things that I know some of you have actually said, hey, we need to look into that. That will be a secondary discussion once we see that, and whether we want to get another sort of second investigation looking at sort of some of the stuff that predates specifically the election issues.
Thanks.
Any other? Supervisor Goodman.
Just a follow-up to what my question was to Virginia. You may not know the answer now, but if that could be part of when the report comes out, that there's some specifics of how that's the mishandling of all that as far as the amount of ballots and not doing what the state statute says, if there's any kind of penalties or anything else of that nature.
Chair, Supervisor Goodman, absolutely. That's clearly part of what he's looking at, because that is directly related to the election, not the lead up to it, but the election itself. As far as penalties, I don't know off the top of my head, but we will be able to prepare that information. Even if he does not include it, I certainly would be capable of supplementing that, or my team would. So you'll get that information, and you won't have to wait till then, at least whether there's a penalty. We should be able to get that to you in relatively short order.
Okay, thank you.
Absolutely.
Any other questions from the board? None. All right. Thank you very much, Mr. Volkmer, Ms. Ross. Have fun working. Thank you for all you're doing, by the way. All right. There's no action here, so just discussion. Item number 2 is an executive session, but I see we're going to ask for a motion to continue to September 7th. Can I get a motion, please?
Mr. Chairman, I'll make a motion to continue item number 2 to September 7th. It's a board meeting.
I have a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Motion and a second. Those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Hearing none. Motion passes. Thank you very much. Item 3, call to the public. And let's see, I don't have any requests, but I know that there are people ready and willing to speak. So, Mr. Reck, I see you raising your hand. Please come forward. And as always, please state your name and generally where you live. Thank you.
Okay. I'm Noel Reck from Casa Grande. After listening to the presentations of Virginia Ross, Dana Lewis, and County Attorney Volkmer, I feel confident that the election problems that occurred will be rectified for the general election. One aspect of the administrative review I do not have confidence in is the involvement of Sheriff Lamb due to his extremist ideology, abuse of his office, and recent collaboration with True the Vote. Let me explain why with a few examples of his words and actions. At a recent board meeting, Susie Wortman spoke about her late husband's involvement with the sheriff's posse as opposed to what she sees as Sheriff Lamb's abuse of his office. As she left the building, she was aggressively approached by Sheriff Lamb, who derided her for wearing her husband's sheriff's hat and recruitment shirt. What he really was upset about were her words and not her apparel. It takes a very small 6'3" man to attempt to intimidate an 80-some-year-old woman. It has been noted that he has done this before with other citizens who have spoken before the board. On a recent interview with hard-right news outlet Newsmax, Sheriff Lamb waxed on about investigating the election problems despite County Attorney Volkmer's decision to not classify the administrative review as an investigation, as that term carries the connotation of wrongdoing. It was apparent Sheriff Lamb was touting his self-proclaimed investigation to stir up murmurs of voter fraud, just as he has embraced Trump's big lie. In the same interview, he recounts Susie Wortman and others speaking out against his abuse of office as 8 to 10 Democrats going after him because he wants election integrity and we don't. Because if we did, we would see that President Biden is destroying this country. Partisan paranoia at its finest. How would he know if the 5 of us that spoke were Democrats, Republicans, or independents? We're just concerned citizens regardless of party affiliation. At another event, he derisively stated that he could tell we were Democrats because we were wearing masks. He concluded the interview with a response to a question regarding the search at Mar-a-Lago. He stated he didn't have enough information to comment on it intelligently, and then proceeded to go on a rant that it was a political ploy, an attempt to damage Trump and his endorsed candidates, that the judges, the warrants, and the FBI were being used as tools by the Biden administration, and that his heart goes out to Trump and his family, who are disgustingly being treated as criminals. He repeated these comments and more during an appearance at an 8-hour-long propaganda fest in Phoenix, attended by advocates of the big lie, Carrie Lake, Mark Fincham, Eli Crane, Charlie Kirk, and representatives of True the Vote, who explained away their failure to produce evidence supporting their debunked film, 2,000 Mules, as the work of Chinese hackers who had infiltrated their servers. One couldn't make this stuff up if one tried. I'm all for his right to free speech and to hold his own opinions, as misguided as they may be. But as Maya Angelou said, when someone shows you who they are, believe them. Sheriff Lamb has shown himself to lack the objectivity and credibility to be involved in this administrative review and should recuse himself from any involvement in it. Any investigation should be forwarded to another county or state agency. I urge the board to keep sharp eyes open should he continue to be involved. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Reck. Any others that care to address the board? No one else? Seeing none? All right, we'll move on. Let's see, item number 4, presentation of certificates of service to employees for 20 and 25 years. Mr. Liu.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman. Thank you. This morning we have 6 employees that we want to honor and celebrate. 4 of them I don't think are here, but I'd still like to honor them, call their names, and recognize their years of service in their career here. If you are here, though, please let me know. Sometimes they don't originally intend on showing up, and they do. So if you are here, I want to be sure to have you physically receive your picture if we have it. So first we have Iselia Lopez from the Assessor's Office. She started back in July of 2002, so she's been here 20 years. She started out as administrative clerk 2 and is currently a GIS cartography specialist, which helps with all the drawings and make sure we get the legal descriptions correct when we record them, which has been a hot topic of recent months. So thank you, Iselia, and we appreciate you. Next we have Dion Rushing at the Sheriff's Office. Started back in 1997 as a detention officer and is currently a deputy sheriff, so has been serving in the county for 25 years. So thank you, Mr. Rushing. Next, we have Darren Solis at the Superior Court, who started back in 2001 as a court security officer and has been such for over 20 years now. So thank you, Darren. Oh, Darren is here. Hey, Darren. Congratulations and thank you, sir. Is there anything that you wanted to say? Or? Okay. Appreciate you, sir. Next, we have Keith Reyes from Adult Probation and has been a probation officer with us for 20 years. Thank you, Mr. Reyes. And then next, we have Brian Freihover, who I believe is here from Public Works. Started back July of 2002 as a civil engineer tech and is currently an engineer there in Public Works. So thank you, Brian, and appreciate you. And I didn't know if you wanted to make any remarks to the board or if anybody else did with us. I see our county engineer, Mr. Wanamaker, walking up.
Good morning, Chairman, board members. Chris Wanamaker, county engineer. I just wanted to say Brian is an excellent example of what it means to be a stellar county employee. He, really embraces our county values. He shows honesty, integrity. He's a hard worker. He's a great example, and I'm just proud to be here to introduce him, and thank you.
He's hard to see way back there. He should have been with you, up here in front.
We'll have him come up for a picture at the end here.
All right, thank you.
Thank you, Chris. Last but not least, we have Mr. Brock Bean from Fleet, who started back in July of 2002 as an automotive mechanic and currently serves as a heavy equipment mechanic. So thank you, Mr. Bean, and appreciate you, sir. I don't know if either you or Mr. Riffey or any others had any comments. And Sheriff, please, if you have some comments.
Mr. Chairman, Supervisors, I know that Dion's not here, but I just wanted to give him tribute. 25 years anywhere is a long time, and he's done an outstanding job both in the jail, also in the sheriff's office. His family has a long history of serving this county. I think it's his brother, his cousin, I can't keep them all straight, currently work at the jail as one of the captains. So this is not only is it a great family here in the county, it is a great employee, and I just wanted to make sure, even though he's not here, that we get up and say our piece about him, because it's been a blessing to have him, and he's been a great servant to not just the sheriff's office, but to all the citizens of this county. So I just want to thank Dion Rushing publicly for his 25 years of excellent service.
Yeah, thank you, Sheriff. Yeah, I was wondering if he was related to Darren, and he is, I'm sure. So that's all of them for today. So those that are here, if we have their pictures, if they'd like to come up and take a picture with the board.
All right. Shall we go down?
Shall.
Look pretty.
Mr. Chairman, I have COVID, so I'm not going to go and get close to folks.
Okay.
Over a little bit, over this way. That way. There you go. Tighten up on him. Come on in on him. There you go. Looks good. Look, it's a perfect lineup right here. All right. And 3, 2, 1. Okay, good smile. Good smile. Here we go. Happy to be here. And thank you very much.
All right, thank you, gentlemen. All right, item number 5 is County Manager's Report. Mr. Liu, you're up again.
Yes, sir. Thank you. Back in about a month ago, you all approved the development agreement with Lucid Motors to have us execute land acquisition and lease purchase agreement. Just wanted to give you an update on that we did issue those bonds and acquire that land, and so that deal is closed. The documents are recorded. We did issue $115 million, a little bit more than that. We acquired 1,366 acres. We have a lease purchase agreement that essentially Lucid Motors pays the annual debt service, about $7.1 million. And then in 4 years, they're required to purchase the property, and they will pay all of the principal and all of the accrued interest on that. So no taxpayer money is being expended or used on this. And just to give you and the public some understanding of the magnitude of the project, with this expansion, over the next 17 years, they'll average about supporting 21,000 jobs and about $255 billion in total economic output over the next 17 years. And I just wanted to read you an email from them, because this came to us as staff as we were working on it, but surely it's for the board and other staff behind the scenes. And this is from Ted Klassen, their Associate General Counsel for Global Real Estate and Construction, who worked closely with us and Mr. Keller on this arrangement. Gents, I just wanted to express how much we appreciate your hard work and vision in making Project Saguaro, which is what it was called previous to the development agreement, happen. You are great advocates for Pinal County, and Lucid highly appreciates its long, successful partnership with the county. As Mike said to our executive team, Mike is the gentleman who runs the operations in Casa Grande, this really secures Lucid's footprint in the county. Thank you, Ted. So I'm sure everybody knows, but they're the electrical vehicle manufacturer that produced the Lucid Air, which won the 22 Motor Trend Car of the Year award, and they'll be soon coming out with a Gravity, which is an SUV, and further models which this expansion will support. So thank you to the staff and Lucid, and thank you, board.
Thank you, Mr. Liu. All right, item number 6, Purchasing Division Report. Ms. Peterson, you're up.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman, Vice Chairman, and members of the board. I'm Tiara Peterson, Purchasing Manager for Pinal County, and this is your purchasing report for August 24th, 2022. First, the board is requested to approve the following contract award, RFP 230628 for weed abatement services. We recommend C4 Weed Control Inc. be awarded a contract beginning August 31st, 2022. This contract is used by the Public Works Department. Next, the board is hereby notified of the following cooperative purchases made. PO 247714 with Midway Chevrolet in the amount of $185,625.16 for new vehicles used by Fleet Services. PO 247739 with High Tech Network and Security Solutions LLC in the amount of $153,193.54 for the Cisco SmartNet renewal. This is used by the IT department. PO 247792 with Knowledge Services in the amount of $132,000 for temporary employee services during the 2022-2023 fiscal year used by County Attorney. PO 247807 with Santan Ford in the amount of $155,096.56 for a new police responder vehicle purchase used by Fleet Services. PO 247808 with Santan Ford in the amount of $124,686.22 for a new vehicle purchase by the Fleet Services Department. PO number 247861 with Santan Ford in the amount of $124,404.60 for a new vehicle purchase used by Fleet. PO 247863 with Santan Ford in the amount of $241,328.58 for a new police responder vehicle used by Fleet Services. PO 247865 with Santan Ford in the amount of $150,498 for a new police responder vehicle purchase used by Fleet Services. PO 247866 with Santan Ford in the amount of $150,498 for a new police responder vehicle used by Fleet Services. And finally, 247910 with DataBank IMX LLC in the amount of $244,549.03 for on-base maintenance used by the IT department. And that concludes your Purchasing Division report for August 24th, 2022.
Ms. Peterson, I think the second one at the top, there's Santan Ford. I believe you said 124,404, but it's 126,404. Is that?
You're correct.
Okay.
I'm wrong. $126,404.60.
It's a whole bunch of numbers. I can see where you could, Okay. Are there any questions from the board? Any comments? Okay, may I get a motion, please, to accept the division report, the Purchasing Division report?
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion to approve the Purchasing Division report for August 24th, 2022 as presented.
I have a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Motion and a second. Those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Hearing none. Motion passes. Thank you. Thank you, Ms. Peterson.
Thank you.
Item number 7, consent items. All items indicated by an asterisk will be handled by a single vote as part of the consent agenda unless a board member, county manager, or member of the public objects at the time the agenda item is called. I see that item K has been pulled by Ms. Cephas to be withdrawn from the agenda. Are there any other items that the board cares to pull? No? Yes? No? You're good, you're good? Yep. Supervisor Surdy?
Nope.
Nope. All right. So may I get a motion, please? I'm sorry. I forgot to ask the public. Yes. Are there any items that the public would wish to pull?
Yes, I request items R, Y, and AN.
All right. We have Mr. Revelis asking for R, Y, and AN. Are there any others any of the public cares to pull? Seeing none, may I get a motion, please?
R, Y,
Mr. Chairman, I move that we approve items A through AV on the consent agenda, with the exception of R, Y, A, and AN. Ryan.
Okay.
And K.
And K.
Oh, and withdraw item K from the consent agenda.
All right. I have a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Motion and a second. Those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Hearing none. Motion passes. We'll start with item K just because. That's Ms. Cephas is asked to withdraw that from the agenda. Can I get a? I need a motion on that.
Oh, you withdrew it already, didn't you?
I guess I did. I'm just jumping.
It's already been done in a
so,
prior motion.
I'm so efficient. Thank you so much. Okay, that's true. All right, then item R is up.
Chairman?
Yes, sir.
Oh, here we go.
Good morning, Chairman, Vice Chair, members of the Board of Supervisors, and staff. My name is Darren Gary. I am with the Civil Division of the Pinal County Attorney's Office, and I have worked with Tammy Ryal, Policy Advisor, and Dr. John Hu, our medical examiner, on this issue, which has been pulled. We are asking, as indicated on the agenda item, for consideration for the board to approve consideration at the County Supervisors Annual Policy Summit on October 5, 2022, to request funding from the state of Arizona for additional safety equipment needed to perform potential autopsies on inmates executed using the gas chamber. This issue arose when it was brought to our attention by our medical examiner that inmates who elect to choose execution via lethal gas may expose the examiner in a post-mortem investigation or examination to gases which may have been ingested, inhaled, and may be released through the lungs or through tissue, and that we don't currently have the equipment necessary to adequately protect our medical examiner or others in the room who may be conducting that autopsy. So we're requesting that the state of Arizona provide funding to procure the necessary medical equipment to protect our medical examiner and others who may be involved in the autopsy procedure.
Are there any questions from the board?
Mr. Chair?
Supervisor Miller.
I don't necessarily have a question. The reason is Florence is the location in which that autopsy will take place. There's not another place, because if an inmate chooses to be put to death by gas, this is where it has to happen. So, and that's the reason we're going to the County Supervisors Association, is to, just kind of lobby the state to help us fund this project to make the examiner's office safer, if by chance that happens.
All right. Any other comments?
Explains.
Any other comments or questions from the board? Hearing none. May I get a motion, please, on item R?
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion to approve item R as presented.
Is there a second?
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Hearing none. Motion passes. Thank you.
Thank you.
Item Y. Discussion, approval, disapproval, resolution number 082422-RD22-015, supporting an Amtrak passenger rail route and service between Tucson and Phoenix. Well, you're none of the people on my list, Mr. Ortiz.
You got the lucky straw, I guess. Yeah, this is a request through Arizona Department of Transportation in support, writing a letter of support for the Amtrak passenger rail route that they're trying to propose. So it's just a future type project. They just wanted a letter of support from us.
And Pima County and Maricopa County have also done the same.
Correct.
Yes. All right. Are there any questions or comments from the board?
Just the only
Sure.
comment from me
Supervisor
is
Goodman.
I know, yeah, and thank you. I know there's some issues with some of the rail internally in the town of Mason, those there, but this is a whole different ball game. This is a good connection between Tucson and Phoenix. I remember years ago as a kid, this discussion had been made years ago that would have probably helped out some of our transportation issues years ago had we done something way back then. So anyway, just speaking to that.
Yep.
So to me, it's a good thing, what's
Correct.
happening here.
It is a passenger rail.
Yeah, exactly.
Commuter rail. Any other comments from the board? Questions? Seeing none, may I get a motion on item? I'm sorry, Supervisor. All right. Mr. Reveles, please.
Mr. Chairman, Roberto Reveles, resident of Gold Canyon. I must tell you, I strongly resent that you rejected my opportunity as I asked for discussion on the previous consent item R.
I'm sorry,
And I'm sorry too, because I think there should be opportunity for the public when they ask specific opportunity to discuss an item that you not ignore them. And especially on a proposal talking about how more efficiently to kill prisoners.
I believe it was not about how to more.
It was to improve the safety and the effectiveness according to your published proposal. But I'm running out of my time, and I'd like to address another item that should not be ignored. May I proceed?
Go ahead, sir.
I want to talk about the item on Amtrak. And you have an item on Agenda 13 on how to improve governance. I applaud you for that item 13 because it ties in to the conduct of the board meetings. And on the Amtrak, I think it's important for the public to be aware and given opportunity to share information that the Amtrak funding is possible only because of the responsiveness of Arizona's members of Congress who voted to support these funds. I have to again repeat, as I have in previous occasions, that the funding for this important Amtrak connection between Phoenix and Tucson is possible only because every single member of the Arizona delegation on the Democratic side voted to approve the funds. Every single Republican member of Arizona's delegation voted to deny those funds. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you for your comments, Mr. Reveles.
Mr. Chairman?
Sorry, Supervisor Kavanaugh. Go ahead.
I would move that we now reconsider our action respective to item R and reopen the public comment.
To reconsider an item, as long as it was in the voting in the majority, yes, it could do that. It's the same meeting.
All right. So my mistake. I will go back to item R, and
Point
we
of order,
will.
Mr. Chairman. It requires, unfortunately, a majority vote.
Yes.
That's true.
That's
okay.
correct.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman,
May I
I
get a
would
motion,
move that
please?
we open item R again.
Thank you. I have a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Hearing none. Item R is back up for discussion. We've heard from the board. Now, does the public have any comment on item R?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you, Mr. Kavanaugh. Mr. Chairman, I always try to be positive with constructive suggestions, and so it really bothers me that I have to show emotion in this instance because I'm a genuine believer in democracy, in the public having an opportunity to talk about public policies. And what you ignored was a proposal on how to improve the safety surrounding the more efficient handling of killing prisoners. And your proposal logically asks what other reasonable proposals should be considered by the public. Well, one of them is to generate discussion in the public on the taking of life and what would be required, a constitutional change, Arizona's Constitution. That's the only additional information I wanted to suggest, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Mr. Kavanaugh, for allowing me to speak out.
All right, item R. May I get a motion on item R, please?
Mr. Chairman, I move that we approve item R as presented.
Have a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
A motion and a second. Those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Hearing none, motion passes. All right, item AN is discussion, approval, disapproval for retroactive submission of a grant application to the Arizona State Land Supplemental Off-Highway Recreation Fund of $100,000. This is Sheriff Lamb.
Mr. Chairman, Supervisors, I would refer to the citizen who pulled that agenda item so I can address his issues.
Mr. Revelis, you called to pull it, so if you care to speak.
Roberto Revelis, resident of Gold Canyon. I stand here in support of item AN because I think it's important for us to preserve the pristine desert scenery in our beautiful county. And I believe using the off-highway recreation fund is a very good practical use of that fund. But I especially hope that the Sheriff's Department has taken responsibility to support the Arizona Corps of Engineers in protecting Whitlow Dam in Queen Valley. It is being degraded by vehicles driving around posted signs and getting onto the Whitlow Dam, degrading the integrity of the dam, which would be very costly in possible loss of life, in loss of a water resource. And so I strongly support the Sheriff's Department's use of these funds. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Revelis. Sheriff Lamb.
Mr. Chairman, Supervisors, I want to thank Mr. Revelis for his support on that. I agree. I think that any funds that we can use to continue to preserve the beauty of this state, I agree. I also want to commend you, the board, for approving 2 range deputies, which goes to what Mr. Revelis was talking about, range deputies dedicated to preserving those areas, in particular Queen Valley and the superstitions and all those areas. And as it relates to these funds, just a clarification, I think it's pretty clear there that the funds will be used as well for motorcycles for traffic enforcement in those same areas where we deal with people on holidays and other issues going into those areas. So thank you to the board for your continued support, and thank you to the community as well for recognizing that this is a good use of the funds.
Okay, thank you. Are there any comments from the board or questions?
I have some comments. I think that the range deputies are doing great, and it's way overdue. And also wanted to point out, and I've talked with Sheriff Lamb about this, about how there's 9 million acres of state land department, and it's up to us to take care of their land for them. And I vowed that when we get a new governor, that I'm going to try to get them to enforce their own land, and if not with their own agents, then that they supplement the communities like ours that have to take care of their land. Every other department has their own law enforcement except state land, and they get all the benefits, and we have to pay for it. So they have the money, and I think it's long overdue that they step up and police their own land.
Supervisor Kavanaugh, I believe you had
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The only comment or question I had for Sheriff Lamb, this says motorcycles. I think the purchase order says ATVs. I don't know if we have to change that or if an ATV is considered a motorcycle. So do we need to make that technical change in the language here?
Mr. Chairman, Supervisor Kavanaugh, I don't know the answer to that. I don't know if they're referring to ATVs or motorcycles. I would have to go off of what they wrote in here and believe that they are actual motorcycles. The money would be allocated from different funds that we can use. That's through the Governor's Office of Highway Safety. And they offered and defer to us as to what our needs are. I would guess that it was referring to the motorcycles, but I can certainly check into that if you want to hold off on that, whatever your
Can we just
desire
clarify with the clerk, because I recall 2 ATVs and trailers. If we need to change it, fine. If not, fine.
I am not aware of what is actually being approved, but what we could do is we can include both language motorcycles in a
And/or.
All right. I think that's
Thank
it. Any other questions or comments from the board? Supervisor Miller.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just was curious with a grant if there can be an amendment to the grant after it's been, actually even after it's been delivered to you or approved, and you are awarded the grant. Is there opportunity to change that going forward?
Mr. Chairman.
Because maybe you figure out it's an ATV or it is motorcycle you need. I don't know.
Mr. Chairman, Supervisor Miller, I assume that we have already submitted those actual, the cost and the requisite to the Governor's Office of Highway Safety. I believe your language change would just cover us in the case that it was referring to it, but I don't think it would change the purchase order or any of that. I think it would meet and cover us on both ends if it was referring to ATVs. But I don't think it would change anything with the Governor's Office of Highway Safety, because these are all things that have already been approved by their board as well.
All right. Okay, any other comments or questions from the board? No, from the public?
Yeah, Dave Coward from Gold Canyon. I believe in the underlying documentation I read that they're talking about side-by-sides. They reference that in the underlying document on this agenda item.
That is an ATV, isn't it?
That would be an ATV, yes.
Same, they call it side-by-side.
Licensed like a motorcycle. It is an ATV, yes.
Okay, great. I just want to bring that.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, Supervisor, with that information, I would fully support the change in or adding that other, so that we don't have to come back to the board for it. But I can assure you that whatever it is that we're purchasing has been submitted to the Governor's Office of Highway Safety and has been approved by their board. So if you were so kind as to make that change, that would save me the trouble of having to come back for another board agenda item.
Any other comments from the board or the public? Hearing and seeing none. May I get a motion with the added language, please?
Mr. Chairman, I would make a motion that we approve item AN with the change into the second sentence that would say to purchase 2 police package motorcycles and/or ATVs and/or trailers and accessories and so on.
Does that satisfy legal? Okay, I have a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
A motion, a second. Those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Hearing none, motion passes. Thank you, Sheriff Lamb. One little thing here is on item Y. We never got a motion on that. Can I get an motion on item Y, please?
Mr. Chair, I'd like to make a motion that we approve item number Y as presented.
Number Y. All right. I like that.
Item I.
Item I.
Item I.
Item
Item
Y.
Y.
Item Y. Okay. I have a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Hearing none. Motion passes. Thank you. I will now recess the Board of Supervisors regular meeting and convene the special district meetings, County Public Health Board. Back here. We'll open the Public Health Services District Board of Director meeting. All items here are consent items. All items indicated by an asterisk will be handled by a single vote as part of the consent agenda unless a board member, county manager, or member of the public objects at the time the agenda item is called. Are there any items that the board wishes to pull? Hearing none. Any items the public wishes to pull? Hearing and seeing none. May I get a motion, please, for items A through D?
Chair, I'd like to make a motion that we approve items A through D as presented.
I have a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
A motion and a second. Those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Hearing none, motion passes. Thank you. Item number 9 is a discussion about Arizona Department of Liquor License Control for an application.
Chairman.
It is. It's been asked that the motion be withdrawn.
If we can close the public.
Oh, would you like me to do that? I'm just making mistakes all day. Okay, we will now close the Board of Directors meeting for Public Health, and we will reopen the regular meeting of the Board of Supervisors, and then we'll go to item 9. And item 9 has looks like you're wanting to withdraw it.
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion to withdraw item 9.
I have a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Hearing none, motion passes. Thank you. Item number 10, looks like 10 and 11 will be discussed together. It's a public hearing and discussion, approval, disapproval on ordinance number 2022-PZ-053-21. And Mr. Abraham, you are up.
Thank you, Mr. Chair and board members. Today's rezone and PAD request. So this is going to be item 10 and 11. We'll do one presentation to cover both cases, but we'll end up needing 2 motions. So today's rezone and PAD amendment request is for Mr. Howard McClure, and they're at the
no relation. No relation.
No relation. And upfront planning and entitlements, Ms. Jessica Sarkissian is the agent to rezone 10 acres from general rural to C3 general commercial zone to allow roping arena with short stay RV spaces and services on 10 acres. And it's located way out on the west side of the county at 84 and Alamendra Road in far southern Maricopa area. Just a quick overview on some of the stats of the proposal. 10 acres, there's 14 RV spaces. Here are your C3 development standards. I won't go into great detail for that. It's more thoroughly documented in your packet. Now, in particular, because we've got the roping arena, which is a recreational entertainment type thing, and then RV spaces to support that. The RV spaces will meet our recreational vehicle park model code for spacing and sizing, things along those lines. I'm sorry. Moving forward, here's your development area, some additional uses that are allowed on the subject site. The subject site located here is indicated by the red star. Zooming in on the subject site, there's our property there in red. The predominant zonings in the immediate area are GR and GR zone state land to the north. Aerial photograph of the subject site. Property divisions in the immediate area. Comprehensive plan designates the subject site as moderate low-density residential. Commercial is an alternative land use that's allowed, provided it's under 19 acres in total size. An employment area along Highway 84, also a commercial area along 84. Then transitioning to very low-density residential as you move to the northwest across Highway 84. Relationship of the zoning in terms of, if approved, of course, in terms of surrounding zonings. This is an Alta survey. I'm going to go. This is probably a little bit better to talk about here. So here's your site plan of how the ultimate design of the facility will work itself out. Attendees of the roping arena and functions thereof will be parked here. Roping arena. Ancillary structures to support the use, including a single-family residence, and then your RV spaces are in the back. So north on this map is actually going to be on the left-hand side of this. In terms of traffic circulation, and it looks like we're only going to generate 5 trips with peak of 10 for 10.2 acres of land. Multiple entrance points into the subject site serving the various uses. Some photos looking north. Looking south at the subject property. This is taken from 84. East, west. There's some broadcast signs. And this is going to be your RV use area. So based on the site plan, your RVs would be arranged in this area and then a little bit down here as well. And then some additional pictures showing the frontage. So primarily rural in nature in this area of our county. And then some existing residential. So items for board consideration. The applications for this land use requests are for a rezoning and PAD overlay. RV site and roping arena with 14 spaces. No letters in opposition. The property does have legal access. It is subject to a code compliance complaint that pending the outcome of today's proceedings, we'll see where that goes. And the reasoning behind the request primarily is to bring the property back into compliance. So the zoning would certainly accomplish that. So the Planning Commission ultimately recommended approval. One stipulation on the zoning, 12 on your PAD amendment case, and I'd be happy to answer any questions that the board may have.
Are there any questions from the board? I'm not seeing any at this time. All right. I believe.
Thank you.
Thank you. I believe applicant representative Ms. Sarkisian is here.
Yes, thank you, Chairman, board members of the board. Jessica Sarkisian, Upfront Planning, representing McClure Roping Facility, PAD. So here is the site, as Steve mentioned. This is the result of a code compliance violation due to it's an existing residential house property that they used for roping and then invited their friends and then had their friends staying and then it just got a little bit more involved than just a single residential use. So the use is currently existing. They're not proposing to add any other facilities, any other uses than what they are using it as. Here you can see it's at next to Highway 84, Interstate 8, and there is Pinal County Park that they actually will take the horses down to. It's a 10.2-acre site with existing house and barn, equestrian roping facilities with some RV hookups already present. This is similar to what they do. They have their friends over, except now there's gotten their friends of friends have started to come over. And it's usually winter visitors that are coming down, so it is not a permanent RV facility. This is, as you can see in the top right corner, you can see what kind of the RV stalls. They're usually attached with horse trailer types. They're not the full-on RV park model or anything like that. This is the exhibit Steve already mentioned to you, the comprehensive plan, the existing zoning, and then the proposed. This is the site plan. I'm going to zoom in a little bit. So here's on the northern half, you can see those are if there's more people who wish to visit, usually it's people just staying in the RV spots. There is trailer parking here to accommodate you, people to view. There's no stadium seating or anything on the site. It's usually people who are just roping, who are watching other people rope. There's teams. And then you can see as you move further down, there's the existing roping arena, and then there's the existing round pen. There's existing kind of driveway into the site as well as some wash corridors going through it that are just remain natural. There's existing fencing already on the site. And then as you move further down, you can see the existing residence and the Mare Motel back there, as well as another storage facility. And then you can see these spots that are already actually lined for the RV stalls. And that's where we had deviations just per code because these aren't your standard RVs where people are staying. These are for more like horse trailer types. They're different, a little bit dimension. This is all pretty much on-site existing non-compliant, so we are trying to fix this to make something that the county currently does not have really a designation for, which is why we're going in with a C3 PAD. And so the PAD, we have struck in all uses, as Steve showed you, to specifically the roping and equestrian facilities, keeping in the rural nature with the surrounding area. And here you can see the designation. So it is proposed up to 14 units there's trailer parking with handicapped and put all the different stuff in there for commercial that's going to be required. And then you can see here with the minimum RV space, we have some proposals based on different dimensions for the horse type trailers with RVs. And with that, that's really all that it kind of is. If you guys have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them, but we're trying to keep in with the rural nature of the property. That's why, you have C3 right there, but it's more of an equestrian type of commercial facility.
Does the board have any questions for Mr. Kissian? Thank you very much. for this item? Anyone from the public care to speak to items 10 or 11? This is an easy crowd. Okay, not seeing anyone or hearing anyone, we will close the public hearing, and I would ask for a motion on item 10.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion to approve item number 10 with one stipulation as presented.
I have a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Hearing none, motion passes. Item number 11.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion to approve item number 11 with 12 stipulations as presented.
All right, I have a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Motion and a second. Those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Hearing none, motion passes. Congratulations. Go forth and rope. All right, item 12, discussion approval, disapproval of the request to create new job classifications to meet the current staffing needs of departments to provide necessary services. I believe this is Ms. Shepard. I saw you a minute ago. Where did you go?
Where'd you go?
Mr. Chair, can I make a comment about what we just did there?
Yes. While we're waiting for Ms. Shepard to show up, Supervisor Goodman.
Yeah, I just wanted to make a comment on 10 and 11 just real quick if I could. I think this is good government on our part looking at something, we've got individuals out there that have had these properties for years. They're out in the middle of nowhere, and this is our staff working along with them to help bring them into compliance and then actually show what they need to do in order to get into compliance. So I commend our staff and looking at this, I think every one of us in each of our district have these kind of properties that are out of compliance, and we just need to find a way that we can help them bring them into compliance. That's it. So anyway, that was the comment I wanted to make. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Any other comments from anyone? Hearing, seeing none. Very well. Okay, item number 12. Ms. Shepard, you are up.
Thank you, Chairman McClure, members of the board, Mary Ellen Shepard, Deputy County Manager. As a part of the budget development process this fiscal year, elected offices and department directors submit requests for new positions. These requests are evaluated by the Office of Budget and Finance, the Human Resources Department, and the County Manager's Office. Once this review is completed, funding is set aside in the budget for the fiscal year. All of that has taken place already. If a position classification exists in our current county compensation structure, no further approval is required, and elected offices and departments can begin the recruitment process. However, if there is no existing classification, and by that I mean a standardized summary based upon overall tasks, responsibilities, duties, pay level, and qualifications, that doesn't exist for the position being requested, we come back to you seeking approval to create new classifications. And that's why we're here before you today. We are seeking to create 5 new classifications. The first is a deputy director for our information technology department. This department is critical to all county operations and continuity of services. This position will assist the director with operations and management of the department and help to ensure an appropriate division of duties and necessary redundancies. The next one is a mitigation specialist in our Office of Public Defense Services. This position will provide necessary attorney support and guidance in areas of mitigation, treatment, rehabilitation, sentencing, disposition, alternatives for clients, relieving attorneys from having to perform this role. The third one is a technical and graphics specialist. This will exist in the Pinal County Attorney's Office. This will assist in providing technical assistance and analysis of case information and in producing quality graphic representations and exhibits for cases and court proceedings. The fourth one is an investment administrator in our treasurer's office. This individual will be responsible for directing and investing the county monies while ensuring compliance with applicable county, state, federal laws, and regulations. And finally, a community health worker in our public health department will be a liaison between public health and the community to support basic health needs, facilitate access to resources, education, and services. Gentlemen, I provided you with a fairly high-level overview of each of these positions. There are representatives from the elected offices and departments available should you have more specific questions. Thank you for your consideration, and your approval would be appreciated.
Thank you, Ms. Shepard. Does the board have any questions? Supervisor Kavanaugh.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. For the County Attorney's Office, the Technology and Graphics Specialist, can Mr. Volkmer? Okay. Mr. Volkmer, my question is a better explanation of this position, the Technology and Graphics Specialist, and where are you getting that work done now?
Chair, Supervisor Kavanaugh, very good question, very fair question. What we have consistently heard from jurors for the last about 3 or 4 years is we have about $1.5 million worth of upgrades to the electronics, TVs, all kinds of stuff in the actual courtroom. Our attorneys have not been using that, I think, to the max ability. In fact, there's pretty cool little screens that are sitting in front of you as a juror. If the person at the witness stand, they can actually circle what they're pointing at, and they can point at it, and it'll actually pop up before you as you're sitting in the jury box. We have historically just used a program called TrialPad. It's through the iPad, and it's a little bit better, but essentially it's a glorified PowerPoint presentation. And our juries are saying, like, we need more. And it's been a consistent and constant feedback saying, why wasn't there more there? And unfortunately, I think this is a byproduct of our sort of new technological age and TikTok and everything being fancy. And they're saying that we need this information from you. We've reached out to our colleagues in Maricopa County. We reached out to our colleagues in Pima County, and they said, oh, we have an in-house person that actually works with the attorney that does all of the graphics, does everything. So when it's being presented to the jury, you get that dynamicism, I guess is the word, where you've got different multimedia things that are interplaying with each other. They said that they've been very, very successful. I think Maricopa has a few of them, and Pima County has 1 or 2, and then this was the agenda item that I brought during budget session to this board and said, hey, this is why we want to do it, this is where it's coming from. To answer your question, what we've been doing in the meantime is we've had our attorneys and our paralegals doing their darned best to try and put something together, but we're hearing from our juries that it's inadequate. So this is our solution to fix that inadequacy.
And do you recall from budget, what does this position pay?
It is a grade 9, I believe, which would be a minimum of 46, a maximum of 71, a midpoint of just under $59,000.
Okay, thank you.
That is great pay for an elementary school kid that could do all that.
We don't have basements out here, Chair, so it's very difficult to find that kid.
Okay. I mean, when you have a problem with your phone, right, you just call your grandkids or your kids and say, hey, here, fix this. And they ought to be able to do that. All right. So thank you very much for your presentation. Are there any other questions from the board? Hearing, seeing none, may I get a motion, please?
Mr. Chair, I'd like to make a motion that we approve item number 12 as presented.
I have a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Hearing none, motion passes. Thank you very much, Ms. Shepard. Item number 13 is a presentation and discussion of best practices, governance, and related documents. Mr. Condiff, how are you today, sir?
I'm so blessed, Mr. Chairman. Thanks for asking. We're going to go a little while. Would you all be interested in a break or anything before we get started, or want to kind of watch body language?
I'm hearing yeses all around me. So yes, let's take a pause here for 5 minutes. Are we good? Okay. We will call the meeting back to order, and we will move on to item number 13. Mr. Liu, did you want to give a synopsis here?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just wanted to stage this for the public. We've all been involved, but I don't know that everybody would be aware. When we started to look at some of our governance rules related to this board meeting itself, as well as the relationship of the board to the organization, we were looking into revising those, and I wanted to make sure that both the board, the public, and staff had a good education of the underlying principles behind the best practices of this good governance. And so Mr. Conduff is an expert, has been a longtime local government manager himself. He is known as an expert. He does trainings at the International City County Managers Association conferences, which is where I first met Mr. Conduff and was introduced to him. And so I thought it'd be good for us as we develop and as he helps to look at the development of our administrative order and our rules of the board meetings, that we also had some education on the underlying principles and foundation to help us do a better job with that.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Conduff.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and Supervisors. It's a great pleasure for me to be here today. I want to thank you for your many courtesies. I want to start today.
God bless America.
Pinal County and the organizations that you represent, the cities that you represent, the citizens that you represent. It's at this local level that democracy really thrives, right? When folks in your county have an issue, they don't call the federal government, they don't call the state government generally, they call the county government, and you all respond. You send folks out to help them. In many respects, you turn some of their most difficult times into some of their best times. So thank you. Thank you.
I'm sorry, can you speak into the microphone, or is it, it's not on, is it?
Thank you. Oh, hey there, that's better. What you do is you make democracy work right here in Pinal County. If you're comfortable giving somebody a high five, or maybe an air high five, turn to them and say, congratulations, you make democracy work. Do that now. Congratulations, you make democracy work. What we do is recognize that your office is one that is peculiarly demanding. What you do is you have to keep just a whole lot of plates spinning. Now, some of you have probably been to the circus and seen this kind of an event, right? But it represents your life. In addition to being here today, you have many plates that you spin. Oh my gosh, anybody ever break a plate in all of the ones that you spin? You've got your family life. You've got your professional life. Many of you have many obligations outside of the Board of Supervisors, and you have to keep all of those plates spinning. And occasionally, yes, occasionally, we do indeed make a mistake. We drop a plate or we break a plate. And what we know in local government particularly is that when we do that, there's no hiding that. It is a fact of life that we are going to be doing a whole lot of things, and occasionally we'll drop a plate. And so what we have to do is apologize for that, talk about how it is we're going to make it right, fix it, and then get right back to spinning plates, right? And so we don't have the opportunity to sweep it under the rug between the media, social media, the audience, the public. What we do is very transparent. And I want to applaud you particularly for your transparency and your inclusion of the public in all of your events. We simply have to go out and sweep up our own broken plates, and we do that right here in front of everybody. And when we do that, we actually build trust. If we try to hide it, we lose trust. And so we'll talk about trust today because that's the sinew that keeps you engaged with your representatives, the folks that you represent, your constituents. And so this notion of spinning plates, do you get to quit? No, you got to go right back spinning plates. And what we obviously try to do is keep an eye on the plates because it's a whole lot easier to catch the plates before they hit the ground than it is to sweep them up after they're fixed, right? And so you all are plate spinners, and you ought to take that as a great congratulatory note. Oh my goodness, Natasha, I'm stuck here. So how did I go so far? It's a very delicate piece here.
So we have a place on the Ed Sullivan Show, is that what you're saying?
Yeah, there you go, exactly. Let's see, how do I go backwards? Yeah, thank you.
Tell me when to stop.
Yeah, we want to go, keep going back. Thank you. Which one are you using?
This
Yeah,
arrow
okay.
there.
But just very easily, right. So we want to talk about this notion of behaviors because that's what the title of the book is. And we recognize that behaviors, the on-target board member, 8 indisputable behaviors, is about what it is that we actually do. What we want to think about is not what we know so much, but what it is that we actually do. And so the on-target board member, 8 indisputable behaviors. This book, if you are at all familiar with policy governance, is very consistent with that particular model. This is Dr. John Carver, the developer of the policy governance model, and his co-trainer and spouse, Miriam Mayhew Carver. When we did the first book, it had a blue cover, but I think each of you have received a copy with a green cover. If any of your folks need an extra book, we'd obviously be pleased to do that. In addition, as your county administrator pointed out, we do a lot of work with the International City-County Management Association, and the book that we wrote for them was called Making It Work, The Essentials of Council-Manager Relations. And so how is it that the Board of Supervisors relates to the county organization through the county administrator? So we think about this notion of behaviors from what it is that we actually do. It's not what we think or say, it's what we do that defines us, right? And if you remember that great Edgar Guest poem from many years ago about I'd rather see a sermon than hear one any day. I'd rather that you would walk with me than merely show the way. It's what we want to try to do is to actually walk alongside others and demonstrate what it is we do. So behaviors, right? Have any of you had the chance to teach somebody else to drive ever? You know that driving is one of those skills that you kind of have to do to learn, right? And so many of you know my story. We raised a second family late in life. We went from empty nesters at the Condiff household to having one in diapers, a potty trainer, and a second grader all in one weekend. We called that a lifestyle change. And as those kids grew older, what we recognized that they had particular needs, and the youngest guy was one of those folks who learned best by doing. And so I taught Jordan to drive by putting him in the passenger seat and driving around and talking to him about what I was doing so that it would become apparent to him what it is that he needed to do. And I office out in North Texas, the Dallas-Fort Worth area, and there's lots of these great highways there, just like there are here in Pinal County, and they have these posted signs on the side of the road. We're driving along, Jordan points out one of those signs, and he says, "Dad, there's a sign. It has numbers on it." And I said, "Oh, really? What are those numbers?" He said, "Well, that number was 70. I said, "Well, what shape was the sign?" He says, "It's a rectangular sign." I said, "Oh, really? Rectangular sign with numbers on it. Jordan, that is a speed limit sign." Now, the sheriff's was here with us earlier. He would be happy to tell us exactly what those speed limit signs mean. But as a civil engineer, Jordan said to me, "Well, what's that mean, Dad, speed limit?" I said, "Well, Jordan, for transportation engineers and traffic professionals, that is the maximum safe speed that they would like for you to drive on this highway under ideal conditions." Now, I thought that was a pretty good answer. I mean, you know, off the top of my head for my young son, I'm thinking, yeah, man, I knocked that one out of the park. And then Jordan said to me, "Oh, Dad, you're so smart, teenager. Can you believe that?" Nah, maybe I stretched that a little bit. He said, "Oh, Dad, okay, I get that." He said, "Dad, how fast are you going?" So I'm going to step away from the podium to demonstrate my answer to that. I took my foot off the gas. I coasted for a while, and then I said, 70, Jordan. Look at that right there on the speedometer, 70. I knew what that sign meant. I could explain to Jordan what that sign meant. It was my behavior that kind of got me in trouble that day, right? What was I demonstrating to Jordan? That, well, maybe 4 or 5 or 6 over is okay. I mean, generally the officer will give you that much clearance, won't they? So what we recognize is that you have to pay attention. I don't know if you ever watched this show called Caught in Providence, but this is an example of a judge who kind of uses his discretion to render interesting verdicts. This is a case where, much like Mike and Jordan, there was a dad who was accused of exceeding the speed limit, and his young son was in the car with them.
This is our other son,
What's his name?
Menelik.
Hi. Look up here. Say hi. Hi. All right, come up here. Bring him up here. I want to ask him a question.
Over here. No, you stay there. You get back over there. I'm going to ask you two questions, okay? Okay. And you're going to say one or the other. Now, we're talking about your father, right? Now, you're going to say guilty or not guilty. What do you say?
Guilty.
Guilty.
You know, oh my gosh, sometimes it's out of the mouth of babes that we learn our most important behaviors, right? So I want to just touch on these behaviors pretty quickly. We recognize you have a busy schedule. We're not going to keep you here long, but we want to use these as an entree point into talking about some of your specific policies. The first behavior, you all recognize this, is that you're here on behalf of others, right? You each have a district that you represent. You work really hard to try to engage with those folks. We'll talk about that. And then you come down to the county supervisors meeting and try to represent them the best that you can. These are your folks, and you're representing them. It's a trusteeship kind of function. And we recognize that these are our owners within the county framework, right? We work for them. If we were a corporation, they would be stockholders. We also recognize that every owner in the county is also a customer of us at in some manner, right? So I talked earlier about teaching Jordan to drive and that speed limit sign. Occasionally, one of our customers in the county may have the opportunity to be an involuntary customer of the county, right? They'll have that conversation on the side of the road with that uniformed professional, and that person will experience democracy the way that individual delivers it to them. And so they become a customer of ours at that point. Now, occasionally, we'll show up down here at the supervisors meeting, and every good customer tries to assert ownership rights. So at one of my places where I was the city manager, I had the chance to invest, as I was leaving that community, in one of the federal savings and loans. And that particular time, savings and loans were converting to federal savings banks, and you could go from a ownership kind of an environment, a membership, to where you own stock. We invested in Landmark Bank. It's been an incredible investment for us. Occasionally, when I travel, because they're based largely in Kansas, the last time I was in western Kansas, the city of Garden City is one of my clients, they have a Landmark Bank there. I was a bit short on cash. I thought, you know what? I own stock in Landmark Bank. Although I'm not a current depositor in the bank, I'll pop in there and cash a check. And so I popped in to the bank, went up to the window, and I said to the nice lady there at the window, I'd like to cash a check. She said, oh, we'd be happy to help you with that, sir. Do you have an account with us? And I said, well, no, I don't have an account, but I do own a fair amount of stock in the bank. And she said, well, that's very nice that you're a stockholder, sir, but you don't have an account? And I said, well, no, ma'am, but I do own stock. And she said, well, we're happy that you're a stockholder. In order for us to cash a non-depository check, that'll be a fee of $6. And I said, no. You can't charge me $6. I own stock in Spank. You actually kind of work for me, if you think about it, because I'm a stockholder. And that nice lady in her 20s said to me very politely, Mr. Condiff, we're thrilled you're a stockholder. This is a policy of the bank. If you'd like to talk about the policy of the bank, the president of the bank is here today, and he'd be happy to engage with you. But meanwhile, would you mind stepping out of line because we have other customers that we need to serve, right? So I can be an owner, and I can also be a customer. Your challenge as the Board of Supervisors is to hear the difference in the issue. It's not the person, right? Mike will always be a resident of Pinal County. I will always be an owner of the county, but oftentimes when I come, I want to talk about a customership kind of issue. And we're really blessed because we have a fabulous county staff, and who do we as supervisors get to delegate those customer kinds of issues to? Our awesome staff, right? We listen hard. Now, if it's a owner issue, we want to engage with them, no question. You did that very well today. I applaud you for that. If it's a customer kind of question, we want to make sure that we pass that along. But the way we engage with that is what we call ownership linkage. How do you hear from those folks that you represent. And that's a tough issue. Everybody's busy, right? And oh my gosh, this is a huge county, and you all live far away from each other. How is it that you engage with your owners? Well, obviously you do the public meetings. You did some of those today. You're doing district meetings. Many of you have HOAs within your district that you engage with. You've got cities sometimes that you engage with. I mean, sometimes when you're out walking your dogs, Mishka, you have the opportunity to hear from folks in your community, right? And so those are all formal to very informal ways to hear from citizens. There are lots of really cool models out there, and you've given me some examples of documents that have been provided to you about some of those really formal processes. There's this great Center for Deliberative Democracy that's out there at Stanford. All of my communities were university communities. They often had citizen engagement processes that we could utilize. Your challenge, obviously, is you have a relatively small staff for the size of county that you represent. These kinds of very formalized engagement processes take a lot of staff time and or volunteer time. And so one of the great things about engaging citizens through universities or junior colleges or sometimes even the school district as upper-level junior, senior classwork is to be able to put a lot of person hours into those processes. So far, what I've seen from you today is that you're very engaging of the public, and I encourage you to continue that along your way. You know, a call to the public is one of those things that really reaches out to folks and say, we're here for you. We represent you. We want to hear from you. One of the things we do recommend, Mr. Chairman, obviously, for that call to the public, call to the citizens, is for the processes to be consistent and fairly enforced. And so however we want to do that, whether we ask them to sign up in advance or we allow them to do it at the dais, is just to make sure we're doing that consistently so that we're never accused of trying to show favors to others. Does that make sense? So one of the things that we try to do is to take what it is we hear from citizens, from owners, from those that we represent, we're here on behalf of others, and translate that into what our job is. And the Board of Supervisors' job, both as envisioned by state statutes and your county charters, is one that provides a clear policy role. This is a video clip of the opening to the movie The Blind Side. I don't know if you're familiar with Sandra Bullock, but she is an actress that plays a woman named Leanne Toohey. Leanne Toohey, by the way, awesome speaker. If you ever get a chance to hear her at any venue, I highly encourage you to go chat with her and just to get to know her. She tells lots of great Michael Orr stories. Think about the importance of role, R-O-L-E,
There's a moment
as
of
you look
orderly
at
silence
this.
before football play begins. Players are in position, linemen are frozen, and anything is possible.
Almost Indian summer weather here mid-November.
Then, like a traffic accident, stuff begins to randomly collide. From the snap of the ball to the snap of the first bone is closer to 4 seconds than 5.
First and 10, Riggins, flea flicker, back to Theismann. Theismann's in a lot of trouble.
One Mississippi, Joe Theismann, the Redskins quarterback, takes a snap and hands off to his running back. 2 Mississippi. It's a trick play, a flea flicker, and the running back tosses the ball back to the quarterback. 3 Mississippi. Up to now, the play's been defined by what the quarterback sees. It's about to be defined by what he doesn't. 4 Mississippi. Lawrence Taylor is the best defensive player in the NFL and has been from the time he stepped onto the field as a rookie.
And it was Lawrence Taylor who slammed Theismann to the ground at the 42-yard line. The blitz was on.
He will also change the game of football as we know it.
And we'll look at it with the reverse angle one more time, and I suggest your stomach is weak, you just don't watch.
Legendary quarterback Joe Theismann never played another down of football. Now, y'all would guess that more often than not, the highest paid player on an NFL team is a quarterback. And you'd be right. But what you probably don't know is that more often than not, the second highest paid player is, thanks to Lawrence Taylor, a left tackle. Because as every housewife knows, the first check you write is for the mortgage, but the second is for the insurance. And the left tackle's job is to protect the quarterback from what he can't see coming, to protect his blind side. The ideal left tackle is big, but a lot of people are big. He's wide in the butt and massive in the thighs. He has long arms, giant hands, and feet as quick as a hiccup. This is a rare and expensive combination, the need for which can be traced to that Monday night game and Lawrence Taylor. For on that day, he not only altered Joe Theismann's life, but mine as well.
So when you think about this notion of roles, R-O-L-E-S, you are, as the Board of Supervisors, the only group that really can create the future of the county. Yes, the cities within your county, they're working hard to look to the quality of life within their communities. The rural residents look to you to help think in terms of the future of the county. City councils aren't doing it. The state legislature's not doing it. No other organization does it. It's you. It's critical. It's critical. And so the fact that you are here representing the owners, the citizens of the county, including all of the urban citizens, to think about the future is so important. That's the creation of democracy. So when you think about it, what we're asking you to do, and it's a tough job, is to envision the future and design a process that helps you get there. You don't have to do the work, thankfully, yes. You are all about what we call the what. What is it we want to be? What is it we want to become? What is it that we want to achieve? We don't have to do the how. We're fortunate to have professional staff that do the how for us. We are about the what. And so if you look at your mission and your vision and your value statement, I love this vision. Pinal County government works on innovation, collaboration, resulting in vibrant, safe, and sustainable communities. Vibrant, safe, sustainable. Is that a place you want to live? Absolutely. And it's your work that makes that possible. You're fortunate that you have the folks helping you implement. You are the only ones that design the what. So it's an important job. I turn that down just a little bit. Thank you. Get you excited. Think of it as a plane ride. Now, all of you have done this, I know, a zillion times in your adult life. You're thinking about a plane ride. And the first thing that we think about is where it is that we're going, right? I am deciding on where it is that I'm going. And then what's the next thing that we typically think about a plane ride? This participation, Mr. Chairman, you can help. When we think about a plane ride, we've decided where we're going to go. What's our next thing?
What are we going to do there?
Hey, there you go. I'm going for a reason, and so I need to make sure that I'm there on time, right? So pre-pandemic, I used to always say, never take the last flight before your engagement, because if that one gets canceled, you're toast, right? Post-pandemic, I say you can't even fly the day before. You need to come an extra half a day or so ahead of time, because flights just get canceled so regularly, and there's no flux. And so if you miss a flight for whatever reason, it's tough for you to get to where it is that you want to go. So just a few years ago, this was before the pandemic, one of your colleague county commissions out in Teton County, Wyoming, asked me to come out and work with them on their governance. Now, Teton County, that's Jackson Hole, right? So pretty nice place to come. Maybe not as nice as Florence, Arizona, but not bad. And so I'm flying out to Jackson Hole. And I'm thinking, when do I want to go to Jackson Hole? I could fly in. Their meetings were on Mondays and Tuesdays. I could fly in on Sunday evening, work, and then go home. Or Jackson Hole, I could go a little bit early. This was in midwinter, February, March. And the National Elk Herd, is there in Jackson Hole. And I thought, man, wouldn't it be cool to spend a little extra time? And so I thought, well, when do I want to go? If I go on Sunday, I can get my work done, but I can't really get anything extra. How about if I go on Saturday, and then that gives me all day Sunday? You've done this 100 times, right? You go through this process every time you think about flying. There is a piece associated with flying that we think about as cost, right? And so I'm looking and trying to juggle. If I go on Saturday, got an extra hotel night, there's some more costs, but there's a return for me. What is it I want to do? Now, in those days, I was flying all the time. I was the upper tier on American Airlines. Did I do that, Natasha?
I'm turning the volume down for you.
Thank you very much. And so I was almost always getting upgraded, Mr. Chairman, on flights in those days. And so I'm flying to Teton County. There we go. And I'm going to go on a Saturday, so I get to see the national elk herd. And I got upgraded. In fact, I got upgraded to the first seat in the first row in first class. And I was feeling pretty good about myself. I know you all are humble gentlemen. Never happens to you, but my ego was starting to get a little bit ahead of myself. And so I'm sitting there, and we take off, and we're headed to Jackson Hole. And I'm thinking, you know what? I fly all the time. I really ought to go up and chat with a pilot about my flying experiences on American Airlines. So once the seatbelt sign was turned off, I unbuckled my seatbelt, and I started up the aisle toward the cabin door. What do you think?
Air Marshal tackled you.
Yeah, exactly. So I was wise enough about halfway up there to think, you know what, this probably is not the best time to engage with the pilot. So I pretended I was going to go to the restroom. I make a quick left right there, into the restroom, and nobody ever knew about that thought except for myself. Do we advise a pilot once we're on the plane? No. What's our job once we're on the plane? We've made all the decisions. Hey, where's Pinal County going? When do we want to get there? About how much money are we willing to allocate to make these improvements that we need to get there? Do we advise the pilot? We don't have to, right? My job on the plane is to sit back and enjoy the flight. Now, as you will see, there is an assessment piece associated with our job description, right? What's our role? Part of it is we have to assess performance. While I'm on the plane, while we're in flight, I get to let the pilot do their job. Does that make sense? So we think about this notion of an airplane analogy. One of the things we want to talk about is, where are we in this process? Thanks, Natasha, much better. We have, you should have a handout in front of you that we call the airplane flight analogy. And it's just this notion that at the very high levels, 50,000, 40,000, 30,000 feet, the work that gets done is almost always the work of the Board of Supervisors. That green bar about 2/3 of the way down is really kind of the key representative for you. What's our role? Just like Michael Orr and the blind side, I have a job to do. I protect the quarterback. In this case, we're looking to the future of the county. It's almost all county board of supervisors at 40 or 50,000 feet. My guess is at some point the staff will say to you something along the lines of, hey, we'd like for you to take about a 30,000-foot look at this, right? You might say to yourselves, you might say, hey, where are we at on this flight path? Is this a 30,000-foot issue, or is this a 5,000-foot issue? Are we actually trying to land the plane here? Are we talking about a level that's so low that somebody else could do this for us? Remember, our time is so critical and so valuable. Anything we can delegate safely, we want to be able to do that. The third behavior is to do the staff a huge favor by setting targets for them. Our job, engage with the citizens, hear from them what it is that we want, stay within our role to think about the future, and then set targets for the staff. Almost always, if the staff knows what it is we want, they will be able to deliver it for us. Will there be mistakes made? Sure. Plates get dropped? Absolutely. We sweep them up in public. We apologize for it. We fix the process so it doesn't happen again, and we move forward. So I was thinking about my age demographic for the Board of Supervisors, and I wondered if you were at all familiar with Stephen Covey, The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. Lots of nods, right? Stephen Covey was very influential in my early career. For Habit 2.
Begin with the end in mind is a clear and powerful declaration that you are the guardian, the protector of your identity, of your future. In essence, Habit 1 is the awareness that you are the programmer. It's the budding awareness that the best way to predict your future is to create it. Habit 2 decides what your life is about. And everything would flow from that. Every decision, large and small, would be a function of that.
So if you think about what it is that you do for the future of Pinal County, it's all about habit 2. We know where we want to go through our conversations with our owners, and we've developed a budget in order to be able to afford that, hopefully, and then we've delegated it to where it is that we want to go. Your vision statement, awesome. Your values, commitment, diversity, integrity, respect, responsibility, service. Are those great values? Absolutely. And so we measure what it is that we do based on our vision. Now, we recognize that as we get new members of the board, from time to time, we want to revisit our vision, right? Just like Lawrence Taylor changed the game of football, sometimes a new member or 2 new members will want to make some changes in what it is that we're doing. And so that's fair. I absolutely encourage all of my clients on an annual basis or so, more often if you need it, just revisit your vision and your values and your mission. What is it that we're trying to accomplish? If you understand your purpose, then you can get to where it is that you want to go. One of the language pieces that we hope we leave you with is what we call the Big Rock Theory of Governance. I'm going to demonstrate it for you now. I'm going to ask you to think about the jar here containing all of the rocks with the constraints of time and money. So the outside of our jar is represented by how much money Pinal County has and how much time we have as a Board of Supervisors to influence what goes on within the county organization. So first, let me pause and ask this question. Do you have all the money that you need? Almost never. I can tell you honestly, having done this now exclusively for about 20 years, I've really only got one client that consistently says to me, yeah, Mike, actually, we do have enough money. We gave some back to the citizens in form of a rebate last year. But other than that one, nobody has enough money. Oh my gosh, there's always so much more need than there are resources. What about time? Do you have all the time that you need to accomplish everything you'd like to accomplish? No. In many ways, it's a more difficult resource for me to manage than money, right? In deference to Stephen Covey, I will tell you one of the truisms that I learned from him many years ago was, we all have, listen to this, we all have all the time there is. It's how we choose to use our time that differentiates us, right? And so as a county, we have all the time there is. How do we use our time as a Board of Supervisors to make the best possible decisions? So within the constraints of our jar of time and money, we've got all these issues that we're working on, and you had many of them today in terms of public hearings for land use changes, issues associated with staffing for the county, what it is we're trying to accomplish. We recognize some employees. Awesome practice, by the way. Congratulations, Leo, for being willing to do that. Lots of stuff going on in the county, right? There's a whole lot that we have to fit into our jar. Remember, we call this the Big Rock Theory of Governance because there are also some really big rocks that you have to deal with, right? And so we think in terms of the big rocks. How about this? Vibrancy, safety, sustainability, are those your big rocks? That's what you've said. And you have to juggle those, right? Oh. Occasionally we are juggling and we drop a ball. Do I get to quit when I drop? No, just like a plate, I pick it up. Where'd it go? There it is. And then we juggle them again. You can applaud anytime that you want for my juggling skills. Thank you very much. We have to get the big rocks in the jar. Vibrancy, sustainability. How about safety? Is that a big rock? Oh my gosh. How do I get my big rocks in the jar? I could break them up. Say it again.
out.
Take some out. Thank you, Supervisor Miller. In fact, I'm not going to do it because it makes a giant mess, and Natasha already told me that if I made a mess in her room, I was going to be in big trouble, mister. Okay, and so Oliver was going to come nip on me if I wasn't careful. So I'm not going to empty the jar out, but does it make sense? Think about this. As a Board of Supervisors member, if I want to work on the big rocks, I should start with them first, right? I'm going to empty my jar and I'm going to say, hey, I want to focus on the really important things for the future of the county. And so we call that the big rock theory of governance. Here's what I hope I hear from you down the road is at some point in a conversation on an agenda item, one of you will turn and look at your colleague and go, hold it, how big of a rock is this? Is this a really big rock? Is this something only the board can deal with? Or is this something that we can delegate to another entity or to the county administrator and through the administrator to the staff or perhaps another one of the county elected officials? What is it that we can do to preserve the importance of our time? There's only so much time while accomplishing the big rocks. How big a rock is this? And so we call that having a clear purpose. When we come to the supervisors' meetings, when we have our constituency meetings in between our regular meetings, are we thinking about our vision and our targets? Are they accepted by others? Do we recognize that we have to have buy-in for those? How is it that we get to where it is that we want to go? And so we use this notion of a funnel. You're all familiar with a funnel, right? We start at the very big part of the funnel thinking about what authority do we have under the state statutes and under our charter and within our vision and our mission and our values. What about what it is that we've set in our strategic planning process? Are the goals that we've set, are they well understood? Have they translated into action? Because again, we're the only ones. It's Board of Supervisors. We're the only ones that can do that. We've given targets, and then we also have to think about this notion of risk. There are some things that could significantly interrupt or even curtail our ability to be successful, right? And so particularly from an internal perspective, we want to make sure that the staff understands some things that would not be acceptable to us. And what happens to us, like many organizations, lots of my clients get to this point, like you're very successful, you're doing a great job. If you can put your boat up on plane, you know how easy it is to get to where it is you want to go. And in fact, at some point, you think, I should just go over and get some waves from people because I'm doing such a great job. Nothing could go wrong at this point. Oh, right up until it does. And then one of our plates breaks and we have a challenge that we have to deal with, and we have to figure out how it is that we're going to accept that, fix that. It's pretty hard to read. Maybe on your screen you can see it. The name of this boat is Temporary Insanity 2. There's a Temporary Insanity 1 out there somewhere. I don't know if you've ever, as I have, made the same mistake more than once. My bride of 46 years kind of keeps a running list of those things that she goes, Mike, you're doing it again, right? And so what are the things that we have to be thoughtful about? We want to make sure that our internal processes are strong, that we're hiring fairly, that we're making sure that we are living with all applicable statutes within the state and within the county. The things that we want to make sure are being well thought out. And we want to be aware of them enough so that we can get them when they're in the yellow light status, right? So here in Pinal County, I've noticed that you do have a few traffic signals, more than when I was here just the last time. I mean, oh my gosh, you guys are doing well. You're growing nicely. What do we like to think about from a behavior perspective for a yellow light? For a behavior perspective for a yellow light? Caution, that's right. And so, again, if I was explaining this to Jordan, or if the sheriff was here, we could ask him and he would say, okay, what are we supposed to do when we're approaching a yellow light? Obviously, we want to exercise caution, slow down, prepare to stop. Anybody remember this movie, Starman? It's an older movie now, 1984, but it starred Jeff Bridges and Karen Allen. Jeff Bridges, this was an early movie about aliens coming to Earth, and the only way that Jeff Bridges, as an alien, could learn about driving, learn about adult behaviors, was by modeling what it is that Karen Allen demonstrated to him. And so he has ridden with Karen to the point where he's comfortable driving, and she's now given him the wheel to the car.
Oh my God! Look out! What are you doing? Okay, are you crazy? You almost got us killed. You said you watched me. You said you knew the rules.
I do know the rules.
Oh, well, for your information, pal, that was a yellow light back there.
I watched you very carefully. Red light stop, green light go, yellow light go, very fast.
You better let me drive.
I will drive.
So in our behaviors, we demonstrate what it is that we will put up with. What are the risks that we say we will not put up with? What are the things we want to make sure don't happen? And once we're clear on that, think about my airplane again. I know where I'm going. I'm headed to Phoenix so that I can get to Pinal County. I am going to come in on Monday evening for a Wednesday meeting because I want to make sure I don't leave you all hanging out. And I am understanding of what the cost for that is. And I've now got my rental car, I've got my hotel rooms, everything's ready to go. And now I can delegate the work effectively to my staff. They know what I want, when I want it, and about how much money I'm willing to spend. And those things that are out of bounds, that's okay. I loved the roping arena public hearing earlier. Think about a corral. A corral is a barrier, keeps the horse in, but within the corral, the horse is free to do anything that the horse wants to, right? We draw the corral for the staff. We say, here's the budget we're giving you. Don't spend more money than that. Here's the behaviors that are okay. Don't get outside of these behaviors. Here's the objectives, behavior 3, our targets. Make sure that you're accomplishing those. Make sure that you do that in a way that we're comfortable with. And we delegate that work through our board, through the votes that we take. And the principle that we utilize is what we call the principle of one voice. And that notion is, as a board of supervisors, we really have all the authority there is. Yeah? We can decide within the confines of the statutes and our county charter what it is that we want to have accomplished about anything that we want. And once we do that and we vote, we've then said to the staff, we want you to go accomplish that. Now, before our vote, we're going to encourage diversity of thought. Oh my gosh, we each represent a different district. You've each come from different places. You come to Arizona from different states. You come to your county board of supervisors with different backgrounds. Some of you have been elected officials before, some not. So lots of diversity around the board table. We want to respect the differences that we see at the table. It's okay if we vote separately than the majority from time to time. All of our decisions do not have to be unanimous decisions. The point is that once the vote is taken, then the board has spoken. At that point, the principle of one voice simply says, county administrator, you understand where we're headed? Yes, then go do that. And if I am a dissenting voice, not only is that okay, I should be honored for voting my convictions. My responsibility as the dissenting voice, though, is not to try to undermine the vote of the majority. I cannot go behind the board. I can't try to lobby the staff separately on my own behalf. The majority vote of the board is sacrosanct. And so it's okay to vote no. It's okay to be disagreeing with the board. We want to do that, and obviously in a way that's not disagreeable. We'll talk about your board meeting rules here in a minute. But it's okay to vote no. It's okay. In fact, this may be a little extreme, but what I might suggest is if you're always going to be unanimous in all your votes, Mr. Chairman, split the meetings up. Let Supervisor Goodman do all the September meetings and then Supervisor Miller do the October meetings. Well, you might want to do the October meetings because somebody's going to have to do the December meetings, right? It's okay to vote no. It's okay to vote no. We want to do that in a way that's respectful of each other and understanding of each other's values. And then, once the vote's taken, we move forward. We move forward. Remember I said early on that you're about the what and not the how. And so when I look at your vision piece, I love the things that I see there in terms of making sure that we've got good mobility and connectivity. Is that an ownership issue? Absolutely. When we think about economic sustainability and the ability to attract great new employers like we discussed with you earlier, is that an ownership kind of conversation? Absolutely. Those are the areas we want to engage our citizens in every chance we get. And what do we get to do? Talk about the level of service that we want to provide, the outcome that we want. Remember our big rocks, so vibrancy and sustainability. Those are the things we want to talk about. What we are fortunate about is we don't have to deal with the day-to-day. Now, do we set the standard for that day-to-day? Absolutely. We determine the level of customer service. What are the calls that you get as a Board of Supervisor member, though? My guess is that many of you get those calls that are a level much below making sure that we have happy and healthy residents, right? Much below mobility and connectivity. Oftentimes the calls we get are about some customership issue, potholes in the road, poor timing on traffic signals. There aren't services out where I am in the county. And so the process we generally like to encourage our board members to take is to thank that person for calling. Thank you for calling, and be sincere about that. When they take their time to call you, that's a huge win. That's democracy working. And then I always like to ask this question: who at the county have you talked to about this issue? Now, almost always what you will hear is, well, nobody, I'm calling you. You're my supervisor. I elected you. I voted for you. I want you to handle this for me. And you might then say to them, well, would you do me a favor? And almost always, if you ask somebody for a favor, what are they going to say? Well, yeah, I'm inclined to do a favor for you. Hey, thanks for calling. Who else have you called about this? Nobody. Would you do me a big favor? Here's the direct line for the staff member in charge of that. So if it's a parks issue, if it's a transportation issue, if it's a legal issue, if it's an administrative issue, hey, I've got a list right here of these folks' direct line. Would you do me a big favor and call the county administrator and give him a chance to deal with your issue? Because we are working really hard on customer service down at the county, and we'd like to give our county administrator a chance to really demonstrate what great service the county staff provides. And would you do me one more favor? If you don't hear back from them, would you call me again so that I can get directly engaged? So what you've done then is all the things we encourage. You've heard from your citizens. You've delegated effectively, and you've put a fail-safe in place. If that level of service isn't where you want it to be, then that's your time to get engaged. Does that all make sense to you? It's great for the citizens. They love it because now they're getting better service. Because you've got a lot on your plate. If it's up to you to provide that level of service, it may get not on your top of the list. But I promise you, when they call the county administrator's office and say, you know what, Supervisor Goodman and asked me to call you, oh my gosh, it goes right to the top of that list, right? So this gives you a chance to very carefully assess the performance of what's going on down at the county. Now remember, you can't be everywhere. You've got big districts. This is a huge county. I'm always amazed when I come to Arizona and see the size of the counties here. We've got 254 counties in Texas. I mean, and it's a big state. Think about that versus your size of counties, right? So you can't be personally supervising everything that's going on despite your title of supervisor. You have someone you've delegated to do that. You do and are charged with assessing their performance, right? At the end of the day, results matter. Effort's good, and the people may be nice. Are they delivering or are they not? I had a chance a few years ago to write a book with a guy named Jack Canfield. You may recognize Jack's name. He's the Chicken Soup with the Soul guy, all those Chicken Soup with the Soul books. That's Jack Canfield. We were having dinner, and we were talking about what I do from a governance perspective and delegation. And this was Jack's quote. Almost off the top of his head, he said to me, Mike, the manager's employed to translate policies into action at the employee level. And I'm going, holy moly. Can I steal that from you, Jack? And he goes, you can't steal it from me? I'm giving it to you. And I'm sharing it with you. Does this quote make sense to you? Doesn't matter what kind of car they drive. Do they wear a tie to work? Do they get the job done? At the end of the day, Is the job getting done in the manner that we've delegated to get done? And if not, we've got a challenge, and we need to address that. If so, we want to hand out those recognitions like your 20 and 25-year employees earlier. So again, I'm thinking about my age cohort here, and I thought surely this group will be familiar with the Lone Ranger. Yes, Lone Ranger? Okay? Think about the Lone Ranger in customer service. At the beginning of the episode, for us, it was on Saturday morning, nobody even knew who the Lone Ranger was. In fact, remember the question they almost always ask was, who was that masked man? And yet, in 30 minutes, he figured out what the issue was, resolved it, and then rode away in anonymity, right? Do you remember the great song for the Lone Ranger? Yeah, you got it. If you've ever wanted to say "Hi-Yo Silver," it's after the second gunshot, Mr. Chairman. There you go.
A fiery horse with the speed of light, a cloud of dust, and a hearty Hi-Yo Silver, the Lone Ranger.
So we love the Lone Ranger. What awesome service he provided. How many Lone Rangers do we want on our Board of Supervisors? None. This is a group process, right? How many votes does it take to pass something? So that's what we teach young aspiring county administrators at our ICMA school. Count the number of your members, divide by 2, add 1. That's what you need. Yeah, it takes 3 of us, right? And so Lone Rangers don't work too well. Now, is it okay to vote no? Absolutely. I encourage no votes. If you're voting your conscience and the will of your constituents and it's a no, it needs to be a no. Principle of one voice, we don't try to undermine the majority. But from a Lone Ranger perspective, we need to get engaged with the group and make the group process better, not disengage from the group. So in deference to the venue, I really only have one group interaction today. I normally like to get more just to keep everybody going. But I need a volunteer to help me with my trust group while we think about this notion of trust. Trust, predictive trust. The way Mike has behaved in the past is predictive of the way Mike will behave in the future, right? You've got many people in your life that you've said, they're trustworthy, they've been trustworthy in the past, I can trust them in the future. And then the second component of trust is this notion of vulnerability trust. Many people will argue vulnerability trust is more important than predictive trust. Vulnerability trust says Mike will make a mistake from time to time. And if Mike is vulnerable to say, that was not my finest hour, I'm really sorry about that. Here's what happened. Here's what I'm going to do to make that better. Here's what I'm going to do to prevent it from happening in the future. Will you forgive me? That oftentimes is a greater opportunity for the growth of trust, because then at that point you can say, not only is Mike's predictive behavior good, when he makes a mistake he admits it, but his vulnerability behavior is great. He's willing to admit it. So I do need a volunteer. And for volunteering, I can offer you another On Target book. I did bring a couple of the children's books.
Goodbye.
Oh, my. So from this, you need to come down from the dais, or you can delegate one of your staff members. It's up to you. But anybody willing to do my vulnerability trust? Oh, yeah. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Oh, first of all, big round of applause on the record for the chair. Thank you for volunteering. Here you go.
Left tackle,
Hop right on over here so everybody can see what we're doing. So let's think about
big butt, big thighs.
So, Mr. Chairman, this is what we call a trust band, and all the work that's going on in Pinal County is represented under the area of the band, okay? As long as we have good trust between the Board of Supervisors and the county staff through the county administrator, we've got all this work going on. That's a lot of work. Feel good about that work? Yeah, that's good. You guys are doing a great job. Now, occasionally the staff will make a mistake. I know that's hard to believe, but occasionally the staff will make a mistake. And when that happens, stuff kind of comes to a halt, right? You've got to figure it out. What happened? Your phone is ringing. Other members of the board's phone is ringing. You might be getting... Never happens. So imagine if it happens, that's how we would deal with it, right? And so occasionally that will happen. It's even harder to imagine work's getting done. I promise you, when the Board of Supervisors struggling, everybody's in Leo's office that are going, oh, Leo, do I need to get my resume polished up? I mean, what's happening here? This is terrible. Life is bad, okay? But that's so rare. We've got all this work going on. Now, trust van, the further apart we are, the more trust there is. Okay? It didn't hurt when I talked to you, did it? That hurt when you do that. Yeah. Oh, thank you for the microphone. I should have asked for those. Are they already on? They are already on. So when we think about trust, now this is going to be interesting. You're using your right hand there. Are you right-handed?
I am.
I'm trusting you to have a strong right hand. Are you okay with that?
Sure.
I'm left-handed. Are you okay with that?
I try not to make mistakes here in a minute.
Okay, all right. So now all of a sudden, at this level, I'm not going to drop my end. You just have to imagine. If I did at this point, the staff really makes a huge mistake. That's ugly, yes? If at this point the board makes a mistake, oh my gosh, ow. People lose their jobs over that. Now, Chris, where are you going?
Oh, aim at him. Okay.
Oops. You notice they both push back a little bit. We call this collateral damage at this point, right? Because when we're at this point, you got a little bit more in you? You want to go back a couple?
Sure.
All right, take a step back. Yeah, nice. Look at all this work. That's at least double or even triple the level of work we were doing before. Why? Oh, I saw you pull back there. You're still strong? You're good? Yeah, your grip's
doing good.
I'm checking in with you. So from time to time, we hope the county administrator is checking in with you. I know that you as the chairman are checking in with your board members. How's it going? You still feeling strong? Yeah? We're building trust when we do that, right? Communication, so important under a trust span perspective. I'm going to walk toward you, and I'm going to congratulate you. Well done. Thank you. Big round of applause. Thanks, Natasha. It's this notion of emotional accountability. We're here because we love the county. You all have lots of other things you could be doing on a Wednesday afternoon. Remember all those plates you spin? I honor you and respect you for all the plates you keep going. And you're here. You're here on behalf of others because you care about the county and you love where it is we're going. And so we are building into our emotional bank account. Occasionally, will I make a withdrawal? Yes. It's human nature. It happens. Sometimes it happens so far down into one of the county operations we're not really even understanding of it. We just know that we're responsible for it. And so that's when we have to do our check-ins with our administrator to make sure that we're going where we need to go. So vulnerability trust, it's openness. When something happens, we want to acknowledge it, fix it, and move forward. So our behavior 7, I know you're looking at the clock and going, Micah, it's almost lunchtime. We'll get you there. We'll get you there. None of this is hard. Everything we've talked about today, you're going, Mike, this is just good common sense. Why do we need a 1-hour presentation on this? Because it is hard. It doesn't take lots of intellectual capacity, but it does take a lot of discipline to stay focused. See if you agree with this quote. Got those folks in your life that just the way they look at you, sometimes you're going, you're making me so mad. Oh, I can tell. And then you've got those folks in your life that you love so much that you go, oh, don't worry. Almost nothing you could do is going to set me to the point, right? And so we think in terms of our ability to be disciplined. How is it that we agree to read our agendas before we get here? That we behave appropriately at the meetings? You all have this really nice list of Board of Supervisors General Board meeting rules that I kind of put into this process. It becomes what you expect of yourself. We are the board, and we get to set our own rules, again, within the confines of those external agencies. But what is it that we want to make sure we're spending time on? What are our big rocks? Where's our heart? Why am I giving up this amount of time? How can I do my job and make sure I don't have to worry about the staff's job? What is it that I'm expecting from the chairman for his role in moving the meetings forward? And then what about our own code of conduct? And so you have this nice group of board meeting rules, which I really like. I am impressed that you've got them written down. From a coaching role, one of the things that you all asked me to do was to think in terms of some improvements. I would suggest a few. Don't necessarily have to go into those today, but this is something that can be refined. One of the things that jumps out at me, Mr. Chairman, is 2019 is when it was adopted. Well, it's 2022. You've got some new members since 2019, right? If I am thinking about any area of my life, any sport I play, football, I've not tried pickleball. Is that big in Arizona already? You know, yeah. There are rules. Here's how you play. This is a foul. This is what's out of bounds. This is no point. If you do this behavior, it isn't going to work for us. And so how is it that we work within our own rules? And so, you know, what we have here really is just that. It's a list of agreements. So we've kind of looked at each other and said, you know what, I'm going to be here on time. If I have a question, I'm going to call the county administrator in advance. And what I would expect from the county administrator is that if I ask a question or anybody else does and an answer is provided, we should all get that answer. So we all have the same exact information when we come to the meeting, right? So some of my groups do what they call house rules. And so house rules just become that. Not necessarily set in stone. We can change them as we go, but hey, I want to be open and honest around the board table. I'm not trying to influence somebody with misdirection or staging an issue. I want to be open and honest. I want to make sure that I'm focusing on the issue before me, not the person who is before me. Remember, it's Mike. I'm both a owner and a customer. What's Mike's issue? We're going to stay strong on the principle of one voice. We're going to make sure we're not trying to ambush anybody. If I've got a question, and I know I've got a question in advance, it's only fair to my colleagues that gets to ask in advance, right? I'm not trying to use this meeting as a stage to promote myself. I'm trying to move the county forward. That's what we're here for. This is the Board of Supervisors for the entire county. And so if I can just agree on a handful of principles, one page. Oh my gosh. Think about that. You've developed those kind of rules of the road with your families, with your business partners. Every area of your life, you've got some of these kinds of things. They may be largely unwritten, and unwritten is okay until somebody misunderstands them, right? And then you go, oh, I thought it was. Well, I thought it was. No, I'm pretty sure it was. No, I think I would. So as long as we have these written down, we're good. So I do want to pause here and ask if you have any questions about that notion of just making sure. I'd love to see a 2022 up here as opposed to a 2019. Just again, not necessarily today, but at some point, take 30 minutes and kind of go through those and say, hey, what about these? Does that make sense?
And you have ideas of your own, I mean, how to improve it?
Oh, absolutely. I'd love to engage with you, Mr. Chairman, and your staff, or however you would like to delegate that. Just to say. And again, these are great. We're not talking about throwing these out. We're simply saying let's polish them a little bit and buff them up and get them current. Is that fair?
Very fair, yes.
Yeah. Are you familiar with the concept of a flywheel? So a flywheel, great big heavy device used oftentimes to grind grain or whatever. And when it's still, it's not accomplishing much other than just taking up space. And in order to get it going, I've got to work really hard, right? I push and push and push and push to get my flywheel going. And then if I push hard enough, I get all the way around. Do I stop once I get one cycle done? If I do, it quits going, right? I push again for another cycle. It's easier now because it's moving. And then I push again, and it's a lot easier because it's moving at a good pace. And finally, I kind of get to that optimum speed for a good flywheel. Think about our board process. What's an optimum speed for us? And once we're operating at that speed, it's pretty easy to keep it going. What happens to us, though, is we kind of get sidetracked, and some issue will come up or something will happen. And the next thing you know, we're slowing down. And so one of the things that we think about is this notion of our flywheel for the engagement of the community. So our last behavior Remember Stephen Covey had 7 habits? When we were writing the book, I really argued for 7 behaviors. I thought, you know what, if Stephen Covey can change the world with 7 habits, why do we need more than 7 behaviors for good boards? But this is the one that really kind of is often the most difficult, but often the one that provides the greatest reward to you as a Board of Supervisors member is what we call reporting back. This is our opportunity to engage with our citizens, with our owners. We call it full circle linkage. And we think about it from the perspective of this is something not that we should do, but that we must do. Now, I know we're heading into lunch here, and so some of you are wandering just a little bit. I get that. But I want you to pay really close attention here. We don't get our shoulds. Most of us just should all over ourselves. Okay? What we do get is our must. I should do this. I should do this. I should do this. I should do this. I must do this. So when we adopted our second family, I, like many of you, had been going to my family doctor every year for a checkup. And every year, my doctor would say to me, Mike, you should lose some weight. Mike, you should exercise more. Mike, you should try to eliminate stress in your life. And every year I'd say, oh, thanks, Doc, I appreciate that. And then the next year he'd say, Mike, you should. Mike, you should. Well, we got the little kids. And he said to me that year, he said, Mike, good news. I said, oh, what's that? He says, I'm not going to tell you that you should lose weight this year. I go, oh, really? He says, I'm going to just ask you a couple of questions. I said, okay, that's fine, Doc. He says, Mike, would you like to live long enough to watch these kids grow up? I go, well, yeah. He said, would you like to be in a good enough shape that you can coach baseball and football for these kids? I go, well, yeah. He goes, well, then I'm not going to tell you that you should lose weight. I'm going to tell you that you must lose weight. It's a different conversation, right? We should govern well. We should. You know what? We must govern well. That's because the future of Pinal County depends on us governing well. Does that make sense? So one of the things that we want to do is to have a meeting where we can actually have the meeting right here, not out in the parking lot. So my mentor, Dr. Carver, has this saying, if you're going to go from driving on the left to driving on the right, don't phase it in. And so one of the things that we recognize is that you've got a whole series of board rules, again, so many of which are just awesome. And at the same time, we recognize that some of them are a little outdated or not necessarily consistent with our one-pager, right? And so rather than just kind of polish one or the other, we typically encourage, why don't we do all of that together and think about making sure that at some point we've got a document that we can put our stamp of approval on. Should it be revisited in the future? Absolutely. In fact, I generally suggest at least annually, but for sure whenever you get a new member. So if you go a couple of years in between election cycles, that's okay. You're probably pretty comfortable with them. But how about when a new person comes on and we say, hey, guess what? We've got a series of ground rules. You know what? We like to drive on the right. And rather than having some of us driving on the left, we'd like to just go over those rules real quickly, make sure that we're comfortable with them. Every sport has a series of rules. Does that make sense to you? I am happy to talk about any of those that you have on your plate right now. If you came today hoping that I would talk about Section 1 or Section C or whatever, I'm happy to do that. I simply recognize that we're getting pretty close on our time frame. So anything, I do have a close for us that I want to get to, but I do want to pause and offer our time for any questions.
Are there any questions from the board? Supervisor Kavanaugh, you're on the phone. Do you have any questions? Maybe you're on the phone. I don't hear any questions.
Mr. Chairman?
Oh, I'm sorry. Now.
Well, just I guess just a point of clarification. You have these suggestions. When when are we going to implement that, or what's the next step, I guess, is what I'm looking at.
Yeah, absolutely.
Or asking about.
Sure. Yeah, so our process basically was that we wanted to come and make sure that you were comfortable with the process, that we were moving forward in a way that was comfortable for you. And then what we'll do is develop a document and provide it to you in advance to take a look at. And then if you want to engage in a conversation about those, we can do that. Or if you are happy with them, you can simply say, yeah, we're ready to go.
Yeah, and that document will show what we have and what the suggestions are. And what
You think of it as a marked chain, markup copy, or you can kind of just put them down side by side. Is that fair?
That's fair.
That's
okay.
I mean, and just for the public's knowledge, we had interviews with this gentleman prior to this meeting. We've all been asked what we thought. So
yeah, exactly.
This wasn't just today.
Okay. Well, again, I'm so tickled to be here. We decided to use the notion of a target because it's something to aim for. In the middle of every good target is a bullseye, right? And yet what we recognize is when we send the sheriff officers out to the qualifying range, they don't have to hit the bullseye to qualify. They simply have to be on the target. And so these are targets for you to try to achieve. And again, my experience with you already has been so positive. I recognize that you've got great heart. You care about the county. You're doing an exemplary job of being engaging of the communities, of the citizens, of making sure they're part of your process. And with just a little polishing on a few of the rules, I think you'll be right where you need to be. So my close simply is this, that you all are in the arena, right? So you've had the chance, many of you, to go Mount Rushmore. The President on the left, George Washington, first in war, first in peace, first in the hearts of his countrymen, right? And so people said to the President of Washington, why don't you be president for more than 2 terms? He said, no, we're electing a president, we're not trying to develop a kingship here. Clear over on the right-hand side of Mount Rushmore, of course, the great emancipator, Abraham Lincoln, the fellow who held the country together through one of our most difficult periods. Right next to George Washington, President Jefferson. When I go to D.C., the one stop I try to always make is to the Jefferson Memorial. It's a lot easier now with Uber and Lyft. You just jump over there or go around the tidal pool and boom, you're there. It's about $5.50. And to read what that gentleman wrote at an age much younger than many of us, right? You're going, oh my gosh, how impressive is that? And then that president in the back, kind of tucked in there. Who's that president?
TR.
Yeah, TR, Teddy Roosevelt. I'm a big Teddy Roosevelt fan, and in fact, in our house, when the kids were little, I have a favorite Teddy Roosevelt quote I'm going to leave you with, and I had it framed, and I mounted it at about this height, because that was just about the height of the boys. And on Sundays, I would occasionally say after church, okay, guys, it's Teddy Roosevelt Sunday. And of course, kids, they're so admiring of you as a parent. They would go, oh, Dad, you're just so incredibly awesome that you would talk to us about. No, not Teddy Roosevelt. Yes, it's Teddy Roosevelt Sunday. And so we would talk about this quote and what it means. And I want to leave it with you because, oh my gosh, you have my heart, my admiration, and my respect for what it is you do. Teddy Roosevelt said, it's not the critic who counts. It's not the person who points out how the strong man stumbled or the doer of deeds could have done better. The credit belongs to that person who's actually in the arena, whose face is marred with dust and sweat and blood, who strives valiantly and errs, comes short again and again, who knows the great devotions, the great enthusiasms, who spends himself in a worthy cause, who at the best, in the end, knows the triumph of high achievement. But at the worst, if they fail, at least they fail while daring greatly, so that their place will never be with those cold and timid souls who know neither victory nor defeat. Folks, you are in that arena, and it's a challenge sometimes to sit where you sat. And folks will be quick to point out the things where you have not done as well as you would have hoped. And yet, you are in the arena. And because you are, Pinal County's in good hands. Thanks for having me today. God bless you guys.
Thank you very much for the presentation. I appreciate it, and thanks for your work. Look forward to getting together with you later.
Mr. Chairman?
Mr. Liu.
Yeah, just before we close, final, I don't know if, did you want to take any comments from the public on what they're hoping for, and as we develop these documents and finish? I think I'd mentioned this would be an opportunity for them.
We can do that. Anyone from the public care to make a comment? I see one. Okay.
My name is Belinda Rodriguez from Gold Canyon. I'm just wondering, so the purpose of this is so that you can implement or improve upon your board rules at each of the meetings, is that correct? And how you govern?
Yes.
Okay. Will that also address the attendance of all of the Board of Supervisors at the meetings?
I'm not sure. There's nothing in. Maybe, yes.
Okay, just a suggestion. That's all I have.
Oh, thank you. Any other comments from the public? The public's getting kind of skinny. Okay. Well, thank you very much, then. Thank you, Mr. Kondo. Appreciate it. All right. Item 14, discussion of board members' request for future agenda items. Is there any board member care to place something on a future agenda item?
Nothing specific, I think we're.
Hearing none. Supervisor Goodman?
Oh, no. I feel like we're on the right course. We've got several things coming up. I'm good.
Okay. And just as a note, we are going to have election reports every meeting. Excellent. Okay. Then item 15. We will move on. Item 15 is executive session. I'd ask for a motion to convene to executive session for items 15, 16, and 17.
Mr. Chair, I'd like to make a motion that we adjourn to executive sessions for items 15, 16, and 17.
All right. I have a motion. Is there a second? Second. I have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
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 Opposed? Hearing none. We're in executive session. In favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Hearing none, we're back in session. We're back in regular meeting. And let's see, we have item 18, and it is for the discussion, approval, disapproval of the settlement agreement and related resolutions of EEOC charge number 540-2022-02181, as discussed. Is there any comments or questions from the board? Hearing none, can I get a motion, please?
Mr. Chair, I'd like to make a motion that we approve the settlement agreement and related resolution of EEOC charge number 540-2022-02181 as discussed in executive session on today's date, August 24th, 2022.
I have a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
A motion and a second. Those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Hearing none, motion passes. We are adjourned.
Everyone else has left the call.